Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Judgment, the Hidden Sin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here for another special episode of this program. This program is based in part on the book that I wrote, Holy but Harmful, The Silent Sin of Judgment, which is not to call anyone out on being judgmental. It's just to provide education and awareness. So when we are judging or we're being judged, how we can be responsible and accountable for our own behavior. Today, I have a very special guest. He is typically always at the top of a leaderboard across the world on USA Global TV and Radio. He has his own show, Weekly Wisdom and Insights, and that show is at the top week after week after week. So if you haven't seen it yet, please ask yourself, what am I missing? How do I get to see it? Go over to our YouTube channels, which are USA Global TV and Radio and Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Our topic today is how fear, unfamiliarity, and discomfort lead to judgment. And Dear James is with us today, and he's going to walk us through his thought process and his research, and I'm going to be having a wonderful conversation with him. Dear James is an intuitive advice columnist. As I mentioned, he is a radio and TV show host here, as well as on his own platform. He actually does readings, and he has helped people all over the world. We're going to provide information about how you can hire him, how you can work with him, how you can support the work that he's doing. But let's first get to the show. Let's welcome Dear James. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Dr. Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And for our audience who doesn't know, we had a little bit of a technology issue when we first started. So I'm glad that we are here and we are able to get together. So I met you a number of years ago through my sister, Debbie Wilson.
Yes.
And you have brought tremendous value to my life as a mentor and friend, and also to our platform. So I first want to start off and thank you for that.
And vice versa. Thank you again for the privilege and the honor and the joy of being on the journey with you at USA Global TV and Radio. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. You also have a second show. Let's talk a little bit about that too. It's Inspired Conversations. Is that correct?
Inspired Connections.
Connections.
Yes.
Connections.
Yes. And it focuses on conversations with other spiritual practitioners or wellness providers and so forth, so that we're constantly spreading and informing and empowering and educating, humanity, the populace, for better ways of learning, listening, of healing, of living. And so that's the Inspired Connections, one conversation at a time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What are the reasons that people typically will come to you for a reading?
Life direction, particular issues, could be health issues, past loved ones, but just life in general. And so I listen to the unseen, Spirit, Source, and Symphony, and I am an intuitive. So I listen to the unseen, and then the affirmation and the confirmation is, I'm telling you things about your life that I couldn't possibly know. And so it's the unseen that is present with all of us. It's also known as our higher intuition, our higher self. And all of that wisdom comes through to empower you, to educate, to give you clarity so that you make higher informed choices and decisions.
Thank you for that, dear James. You just mentioned the word intuition, and I want to talk about that a little bit as we get into our topic today. I found for me personally, many times my intuition will say to me, don't say that, or don't respond, or maybe take a different direction, or you should go down this path. But I haven't always listened to my intuition. And I'm wondering if that is a factor when it comes to judgment. And I know you've got some definitions of judgment, which we're going to get to. But I just want to put it out there that that little voice that we have inside of us, that intuition, sometimes we could be listening to it and saving ourselves from falling off a treadmill, for example, when our intuition told us not to wear those sneakers.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're sharing and talking about, there's 8 billion plus souls on the planet, and we all do it. And it's that constant true north, our intuition, our gut, our knowing is our soul source GPS connection. And it's constantly realigning us to true north. And so, of course, the ego, mind, personality, human will come in and override it. So, to your point, I knew to do something, I knew not to do something, and I overrode that and did it anyways. And then, of course, we humans get the experience of overriding, the purity of our soul and that soul source connection. And so, yes, and that's how it will fall into the category of judgment also, because again, when we don't listen and our soul and that soul source connection is telling us to do something or to not do something, and we don't listen, we can actually fall then into judgment of another or of ourselves or something that then again causes a chain reaction.
Very well explained. Thank you. And for our topic today, which is fear, unfamiliarity, and discomfort lead to judgment, I think we're going to have a really robust conversation with that. But let's start
Yes.
off with one of the definitions that you have for judgment.
Well, the true meaning of judgment is the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. The mental ability to understand and evaluate given circumstances and make informed opinion and decision, and an opinion or decision that is based on careful thought. So when you look at the purity, the true meaning of judgment, you hear the words considered, sensible, informed, careful. And so there's this true meaning of judgment where we make informed, careful, considered decisions, sensible. And then there's the shadow aspect of judgment where we forego considered, sensible, careful, informed. And it's just this rash to judgment or this reactive choice and action. And so it falls into the shadow aspect of judgment. And then, of course, we have, as to the title of your book, the holy aspect, the divine aspect of judgment, which is, of course, reserved for quote unquote God's wrath, God's judgment.
And what I found is when I personally feel highly emotional, that's when I can get into a state of fear. And then that fear is that the catalyst, the foundation for what my next behaviors or my next actions might be.
Right. Well, and because exactly when we're in the shadow aspect of fear, pardon me, of judgment, it's because of fear, unfamiliarity, and discomfort that's driving that forward. So now we're in the shadow aspect of judgment instead of the purity of it. And so any one emotion can trigger it. The discomfort of something, the unfamiliarity of something, the fear of something will trigger us to fall into the shadow aspect of judgment instead of the purity of judgment.
And when we think of this shadow aspect of judgment, would that include what I'm going to call passive aggressive comments? You look great for your age. You look great today. Any number of these things.
Absolutely, because those statements are acts of judgment. Someone is in essence giving you a passive aggressive or backhanded air quotes compliment, and yet within that compliment, backhanded compliment, is judgment because they've put a qualifier, a limiter on that statement, which invokes or if you're watching, if you're paying attention, it says, you have a judgment about age or gender or what somebody should be doing. And so that judgment is coming through in the backhanded compliment.
So, for anybody out there who's watching or listening, we are not lecturing. We are merely
No.
providing education and awareness so we can all think about our own behavior. And I like to think of things in three questions. Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? So before making a comment, maybe think of those three things, and maybe you won't make the comment, or maybe you'll make the comment in a different way. The other thing I think about judgment when we think about discomfort, for example, is when people decide to give opinions about things and no one asked for it. And the opinion typically is laced with judgment because one person thinks they can do something better than another person, or one person thinks they're trying to help someone. When I was your age, or you'd be nothing without me. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is, to this point, it's always about the best pause is to ask yourself, am I in the purity of judgment? Meaning, am I going about this in a considered way, in a careful manner, in an informed manner? Or am I in the shadow aspect of judgment? And this is to your point, Dr. Jacqueline, this kind of these rush to judgments, or I'm offering something, this 24/7 news cycle and, social media, meaning our opinions at a fingertip. Well, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so if we're in the purity of judgment, then it's going to be reasoned and informed and considerate and careful. If we're not, then we're going to be in the shadow aspect, and it's going to be some form of, fear, discomfort, unfamiliarity, and thus my opinion is my judgment. I'm just spewing it out as you see me, virtual heaving here. It's this because it's too easy. It's too easy in this day and age with social media and everything at our fingertips to simply kind of regurgitate or purge something out without consideration, without care. And this is where we fall into purity of judgment, shadow of judgment.
Very well explained. Thank you so much for that. Many people who are watching the show, whether it's on the live or the replay or they're listening later, may think they're not judgmental. I just had two people tell me that they're not going to buy my book because they don't have any issues with judgment. And I wasn't judging what they were saying, but I can think of times when they said things that were judgmental, but I decided not to say anything. So because we're bringing awareness and education, how do we inspire people to think and say to themselves, I may be judging? Or maybe when someone's judged me, maybe I am then coming back with more judgment.
Well, the more important aspect in the example you just gave is, why would the title of the book, or I don't have a problem with judgment? Okay, but nobody said that you did. However, what you've just conveyed is that you're not open to receive information or a new perspective or this opportunity to learn and grow and expand, to have an aha moment. So one might consider themselves to be non-judgmental, and yet by the fact that they don't entertain it means there's judgment in I'm non-judgmental. I don't need that. But again, none of us know everything. None of us, and the world we're consistently and eternally learning, evolving. And that requires a willingness to engage, a willingness to see beyond what we might know of ourselves, of others, so that, because again, the purity of judgment, the true meaning of judgment is the ability to make considered decisions in a sensible manner. But that means you're going to be, it's incumbent that you're learning, that you're investigating, that you have a desire to investigate, to discern, so that you remain in the purity of judgment and not in the shadow of it.
Dear James, thank you for that. What's coming up for me is love to watch children. In fact, I was just at the gym and there were these two little kids on the treadmill, and it just the curiosity that they have, the wonder, there's no fear. The one child, he was not even tall enough really to see over the thing, and he put it on 5.0. And I said to the parents, and I started getting afraid for him, but he had no fear. And at some point in our life, we go from that curiosity and that childlike essence and that wonder to go to your room. Don't do that. You're not going to be good at that. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. And I think that first time that judgment comes, maybe in school, you'll never be a good singer. You're not going to be any good at art, et cetera, et cetera. Things start to change. What are your
Yes,
thoughts?
and so you're speaking to, especially with children, the innocence, the purity of them, and how that literally speaks to the purity of judgment, meaning they don't know anything any better. They don't know anything else. It's pure, it's innocent. And so they are in essence, non-judgment. They're open to receive. It's only through learned experience that we then fall into the shadow aspect and we start judging everyone and everything, and including ourselves. And so, you know, it's a biblical reference of, you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, be childlike. It is this return to the purity of judgment, the innocence, the purity within all of us. And it doesn't matter our age. We could be 110. Okay. It's a choice of, are we in the purity of life, of judgment, of discernment and care and consideration, or are we exercising its shadow aspects?
So, is what you're saying really coming down to it's based on your motives, a person's intention?
It's based on the purity of your intentions or not, your motivations, um, but again, and your mindset. So to the example where you just utilized where they, I don't need your book because I'm non-judgmental, then that means what they're saying is I have nothing to learn. However, that also then denotes that they are confined, they're boxed in, and thereby not open. And it doesn't matter whether it's judgment or, we're using judgment as the broad brushstroke because it involves so many things like, the taboo, the woo-woo, the misunderstood. It can be societal, religious, cultural, socioeconomic, or inaccurate conclusions. Are you willing? It's demonstrating, are you willing? Your willingness. Are you willing to engage and learn and discern so that you have a considered opinion or a decision or not? And that's really, it's the depth. So all of those things, purity of intention, purity of action, they're all reflective of our mindset. Where are you? It can always be changed, but your willingness to do so is what's paramount. It's at the forefront.
I agree with you. Thank you. Dear James, do you think that there's any correlation between the amount of education or intellect a person might have and whether or not they are open or curious? And the reason I bring this up is we interview so many different people, very accomplished people, people who are out there with their own platforms, and they're typically the ones who will have some comment to me, for example, oh, if I join your team, I'm not going to take your listening course because I'm an expert listener and there's nothing I can learn. There's nothing you know that I don't know. And then I'll say, well, thank you for sharing that, but how would you know? Because you didn't take the course. So,
Right? I mean, and to that point, see again, when ego, mind, personality, human comes in and overrides the wisdom of the soul, of the divine, of your intuition, your knowing. Well, then of course there's an imbalance because we absolutely need a healthy ego, mind, personality, human in concert with and service to the soul, the higher self, the unseen. And so these socioeconomic factors, these judgment factors, well, what's your station in life? Where do you live? What do you have? What's your income? What's your education? So you can be, of course, the wealthiest person in the world and be the most judgmental in the shadow aspect of it. You can be homeless, the pauper, and be the most wise and informed. And so, again, to what degree is any one individual open to receive, to learn, to evolve. And to do that, it requires childlike behavior, humility, innocence, kindness, and a willingness to learn.
So, based on what we're talking about and what you just shared, how is it that we individually can look at ourselves, our life, and say, it's not up to someone else to take the first step, it's up to me? And if you watch mainstream television, which I do not, I don't have any live television service, I notice when I read about the news that there are people who are extremely on polar opposite sides of things and very judgmental about the other. So we're no longer the human collective. We're going against each other. And it's almost like a civil war that's taking place every day.
Mm. Well, and again, with the sensationalism of media, and doesn't matter on both, on all sides, the clickbait on, the internet and 24/7 and social media and all of this. And so again, one of the first things would be to recognize and understand that is the formula that is created and manufactured and being quote unquote fed to us. So when you engage, whether it be again live television or internet based or social media based, instead of just rapidly and willingly accepting what you just saw, heard, read, the purity of judgment, the true meaning of judgment is to stop and say, okay, that's what they just conveyed. Now let me go do my homework, my research. Let me go see if that's true. But again, we're in this reactive and very heightened, to your point, very polarized and heightened and immediately reactive kind of environment, not stopping to remember and recognize that the machine that is media and 24/7 news cycles and social media, am I going to get the most views or the most clicks? It's based on sensationalism, on ginning up whatever the issue may be or the people that may be receiving it. And then the algorithms, I see that you click on this, so now I'm going to give you 1,000 more. And the more you engage in that, the more the algorithms send you. And so there's a lot of need for discernment, for pause, for slow down, do your research so that you're in the purity of judgment. And that will offer considered, informed, careful, considerate type responses. Or to your point, earlier in the show, or no response. There's no need to engage or recognize where people are. If I just had this conversation with a dear friend yesterday saying, when you read someone's vitriolic post, that's where they are. They're not open to receive. They're not interested in a counter opinion or a reasoned opinion. Most times they're kind of hell-bent in their corner, and that's where they are. So to engage that energy just simply amplifies it, magnifies it. Better choice would be to go and create your own post that may counter that in a pure, considered, reasoned way, as opposed to engaging on the one that's in the shadow aspect of it.
So it's good for us to pause and reflect and do our own research. And
Yes.
with the availability of artificial intelligence on all these different platforms, that's one of the differences between a human and a robot. We have the ability to think through things and make informed decisions. And part of the reason that I wrote the book, Holy But Harmful, was because I felt I was challenged by someone who told me that God didn't know me or love me because I stopped going to church. And I thought, is that true? Let me do some research. So I started interviewing people in the clergy. I started interviewing peace ambassadors, people who are intuitives, and I wrote the book. And I based the book on neuroscience and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, et cetera. But instead of going back to the person and saying, well, how about, just starting something else, I decided to look into it and I wrote a book about it.
And see, this is where the catalyst of the shadow of judgment may be an irritation, can cause harm. Um, and yet what you did in this beautiful example is you took it upon yourself. What you took upon yourself wasn't their judgment and the shadow aspect of their judgment, but rather what you took upon yourself was, let me dive deeper. Let me investigate. Let me sit with that for a minute. And when I do, whether I reject it or I accept it, I will do so from a considered, informed position. And this is where, one of the factors with judgment can be religious. And that meaning, with organized religion, again, what's the purity of how it's being conveyed? What are the beliefs, the doctrine, the dogma? And when does it move from the purity of faith and religion, of the word, the way, to one's, air quotes, opinion or dogma of it or doctrine of it? And this, of course, is, the famous moment in at the temple in Jerusalem when Master Jesus tosses the tables and everything and challenges the Pharisees and says, you're borrowing from the people what is rightly theirs, meaning your divinity, your divineness, your soul source connection. And this was a great threat and challenge because, of course, what Master Jesus was saying in that moment was, go direct to the Father. If they're going to, and this is not speaking negatively about organized religion, it's just, again, discernment. It's about considered discernment and investigation and so forth. Because, again, why would somebody say to another, God doesn't love you? That's not, if anything, Master Jesus and religion, the Bible says, God, Master Jesus, loves everyone. It's very clear in the New Testament. So again, one can see how that may have fallen into the shadow aspects of judgment.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate your comments on that. And just for our audience to know, there's no script. Dear James does not know what I'm going to be asking. I don't know what I'm going to be asking. I don't know what he's going to be saying. So this is just all off the cuff. So we were talking a little bit about organized religion. I am not an expert when it comes to religion. I'm not an expert when it comes to spirituality, but there are definitely people on both sides of the fence, if you will, who only believe the way forward is organized religion. And there's some people that only believe that spirituality is. So when we have people who are so polarized on something like that, how do we all get along?
By the one simple, one simple tenet, judge not, lest thee be judged. It's simple. We have simple commandments, and tenets. You do the first one, love thy God, love thy neighbor as thyself, thy God is all other, above all other. And there was a gentleman that said, if we just did that first commandment, the rest is commentary. Because imagine the world where, love thy neighbor as thyself and thy God above all other. Well, you would never do harm. You would never be in judgment of your neighbor, another, because of the fact that then you realize and recognize that you're doing it to yourself. Do unto others as you would have done to you. They're simple tenets in life. And yet again, with this 24/7 news cycle and this polarization and this, this redefining of Christianity, religion, Christianity, faith. And if anything, the New Testament is all about, it's very clear. Its message is love, unity, oneness, universal love of self, of others, of animals, of earth. So it's not hard. This is basic kindergarten, five fingers, 10 fingers, 10 toes type thing. It's this aspect of, again, what are we willing? Are we willing to stop upping the ante and engaging in the shadow aspects of ourselves? Because that's what we're doing, the shadow aspects of judgment. When we're doing that, that's easier than stopping and saying, let me investigate to your point of what you did. Let me stop. I heard you. Okay. Now I'm going to go and investigate for myself. I'm going to go investigate me. I'm going to go, because that statement challenges you to say, am I worthy of God's love? It's a very self-reflective challenge and opportunity for one to stop and say, to see their own divinity, their own self-worth, self-value, their own compassion with themselves and others. And so again, here, there's this battle royale, is what the unseen is saying, this, which wolf wins, the one you feed. Well, there's this battle royale. We ultimately know which wolf wins. We're just in the process of choosing and remembering that.
There's a lot to unpack there. Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And there may be some people out there now who just judged what you said, or they're judging me. Who knows? But it's not ours to have to unpack, right? We can unpack what you just talked about, but what people are judging or thinking about us is not ours.
No, and that's a very important thing in life, is to remember what's mine, be willing to own it, what's mine, and what's yours, what's somebody else's, and to not take on someone else's judgment or fears or discomfort or unfamiliarity, because all of those things are shadow aspects that just continue to snowball. What is incumbent upon us is self responsibility, self accountability. What's mine? And being willing to look at it, because who am I to judge? I have no, it's not my place to judge other people. And thus, are we in the purity of judgment? Let me make an informed decision for myself, and what's yours is yours. What's mine is mine.
Absolutely. And I think when we are informed, the example that I gave about not being loved by God or God not knowing me, I could have come back with any number of retaliations, judgments. It could have been a huge fight, an argument, but instead I decided to go and pursue it. And in terms of researching it, and what I have found is when I don't do my research, even if someone makes a referral to me about something, I have made a poor decision. And I can't judge anyone. I can't judge the person who made the recommendation because I didn't do the research myself. And I remember when my father was alive, he would always say that I'm too trusting. And I really do believe in the goodness of people. I really do believe people are well intentioned. And I still believe that. And that's how I walk around.
Yes.
And I get judged for that, that you're weak, you're too easy. So
Yeah.
that's not mine, though. This is how I really feel. I feel like and somewhere in within us, we are all good people.
Absolutely. And to this point too, of this person that said, God doesn't love you. When you get to the place where you literally, genuinely, authentically can say, thank you for that comment, for that statement, because from a place of a cloak of opposites, look what that one comment from one person inspired, invoked, created. And to your point, to your credit, Dr. Jacqueline, you harnessed that cloak of opposites, that in essence negative statement, but you harnessed the power of it for good, to inspire these episodes of this show, the book. You turned that around, and what an incredible thing to do. That's what we're meant to do. Because the point of this, when you can say thank you to the person that did that, or even if it's just silently, it's the fact that you're recognizing in that moment that they showed up and played their divine role on a soul level. They played their role that would inspire, in a cloak of opposites, would inspire you to dive deeper, to look at yourself, and then take that and say, now what am I to do with this newfound wisdom? You didn't become the lesson, you transmuted it. And this is where it's so important for us to, allow our life experiences to refine us, not define us. When we allow another to define us, then we're not getting the lesson. When we refine, well, then greatness occurs. one would say divinity is present. It's present in all, but it really shines in that moment.
I absolutely agree with you and love what you shared. And I want to see if we can take it and kind of give it as some bullet points or some takeaways for people who are out there, because people might think, you know what, I'm really agreeing with all of this. What do I do? How do I change the way I'm looking at things or how I'm interacting with people? And I think one great tool is after you get to know yourself, you love yourself, you like yourself, you're grateful for what you have, and you can set boundaries.
Yes. Yes. Healthy boundaries are absolutely appropriate. And also, it's to recognize, stop and pivot. Am I in the purity of judgment or the shadow of judgment? And that purity or shadow of judgment can be with self. So it starts there, it starts inside, internally, and then to the external. The easiest one, of course, we're in relationship. So external relationship, it's the easier one to recognize. But stop and pivot. The minute you're in the shadow aspect of judgment, stop and pivot, change, set boundaries. To your point, Dr. Jacqueline, set boundaries. To your other wonderful offering and everything, elevated listening, to listen to your soul source connection, that knowing, that inner voice, first and foremost, and then to what others are saying. I hear you saying, is this what you're saying? Or I hear you saying this. Is this what you're saying? Because again, 9 times out of 10, you know, with humans and human relationships, what someone is saying in the moment is not what's deep down inside and at the root of what the issue is. And so again, this willingness to evolve, this willingness to learn. And I just want to bring this in because it's about inaccurate conclusions. Selective attention to negative information and or misinformation, a predisposition to something leading to inherent difficulties in accurately assessing others. So this selective attention, it's almost like this selective amnesia, this selective attention, this being addicted, hooked on the negative or the misinformation or the inaccuracy of something and trafficking in it anyways. And the amount of harm that that does. One thinks that that harm is outward towards them or someone. But universal law says it's all energy, it's all in reciprocity. So that level of engagement is already coming back to you 1,000-fold. So stop and pivot.
Stop and pivot is exactly what we have to do because we are out of time. So I've really enjoyed this episode and I hope you'll come back for one in the future. But before we go, I'd love to have you tell people about your shows and your platform. And we've been showing them how they can reach out to you. But how do you want people to reach out and who do you want to reach out?
So everyone is welcome to reach out in a positive and kind, loving manner. You can go to www.dearjames.com. From there, you'll see all of my social channels and everything, and all the offerings. A lot of wellness and tools and practitioners and intuitive advice. So you can submit an intuitive advice question. There's my website, and then also join us every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific is Weekly Wisdom and Insights. It's a show where we literally look at the current energies, the intuitive wisdom and insights from the unseen, and we go as guided. So there's always it's very, inspiring and empowering information from the unseen. And speaking about and it can have everything to do with, astrology, numerology, the intuitive, and just the purity of the soul. So that show is every Wednesday. I do private, individual, and group and business intuitive readings. Those are available, and there's a lot more. So you can check under shop.dearjames.com for the offerings, and just go to the website overall for how to interact.
Thank you very much, dear James. It was an absolute pleasure and honor to be here with you today. So please go in peace, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
And you as well, Dr. Jacqueline. Thank you for the beautiful opportunity.
Thank you. Bye for now. As I mentioned at the top of the show, dear James, weekly wisdom and insights is always one of the top, whether it's on USA Global TV and Radio or Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. So please go and subscribe. Go to Dear James's channel on YouTube as well. You can subscribe there. And if you're so inclined, I'd like to offer up asking you to consider purchasing a copy of my book. You can get the ebook for 99 cents. And you don't know what you don't know until you read the book, and then you will know. You'll be able to make a comment. So here it is. It's available in Audible, in paperback with really high quality paper, as well as paperback in regular paper, if you will, hardback and ebook, all on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. Okay, we're going to go over to our sponsors, and then we'll be back with our next program. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. And remember, think before you speak. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Thanks for listening. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
We face daily cyber risks, spending over 7 hours of screen time, including 4.5 hours on mobile phones. This convenience comes with significant dangers, with cybercrime costs predicted to exceed $10.5 trillion by 2025. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to cybercrime. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, senior living facilities, investment companies, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We offer real-life examples to help you recognize and prevent attacks, with sessions available both in person, in selected regions, and remotely. Schedule your training session, or to learn more, contact us today. Call us at 847-845-9360. Email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com. Protect your team and family with cybersecurityeasy.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.